Welcome back to this week's episode of Be Bolder. Last week, we were lucky enough to hear from Peter Burikowski. And if you haven't checked out that episode yet, please do on either the podcast or on YouTube. He gives some great advice about thinking bigger, taking bigger risks, and just some really great tidbits throughout that conversation. So strongly suggest that you think about that. And so this week, we're going to continue down the pathway of, we talked about it at the onset of this series. It's kind of, we're letting it hurt, we're letting it suck, and we're letting it go in the context of change. And as I thought about that, a lot of times that feels like it has a really negative connotation because those words are a little heavy. Let it hurt, that seems sad. Let it suck, that seems kind of crappy. And then let it go. And all of those things have a heaviness to them. And as I thought about that, that isn't always the right way to think about it, said very directly. So, as I was thinking about this in the context of a conversation we're going to have coming up here with some budding entrepreneurs and the things that they're facing each and every day, they're having to make choices about letting things hurt, i.e., how much time and pain and effort and energy do they want to put into things? They're having to let it suck, sometimes working a few more hours a day than they really, really want to. And then they're letting things go. And with that, there's sadness, but there's immense joy. So we're going to dig into particularly the letting it suck piece of it a little bit this week. So letting it suck, letting it hurt. I feel like we can kind of conceptualize that. Okay, we've got either some things that we have to let go of, or we've got to incur a little bit of pain before we can get to the thing that's on the other side that's really, really beautiful in terms of our transitions, be it work, life, relationships, whatever, I don't care. But then we also have this phase where it kind of sucks. And I think this is the phase where people tend to fall apart a lot, because the hurt part we can get past because you can put your head down, you can bull rush through, pain in terms of maybe breakup or whatever it's going to be, or pain. Hey, I've got to work a little harder today because I've got to get this thing done for my business. But the let it suck, that is a place where I think people tend to fall off and fail. So when I say let it suck, there is always a phase in your startup business, or any business for that matter, where you are getting to a place where you say, oh, shoot, I've been working really hard at this, and it has been pretty painful in a lot of respects. And I've had to sacrifice a lot. And it's at that point where a lot of times we want to give up because it's kind of painful, and we kind of want to go back to something maybe it's a little bit more easy. And that's the part where we kind of have to dig in and really let that suck a little bit and push through in a healthy way to make sure that we're achieving the things that we've set out to achieve for our business. And so as I've had some conversations recently with entrepreneurs, I've been reminded of this because, they're having discussions about, they had to make some decisions, financially or otherwise to get their business set up. That kind of hurt a little bit, but they're still excited. And then they start to move into a phase where they come home from maybe their full-time job because they're trying to moonlight and grow this business as long as they can while still making some other income to support their life and their family, whatever it's going to be. And they say things like, man, the last thing I want to do is come home sometimes and work for another 4 or 5 hours on my business because I'm tired, or I want to go do other things and whatever. And that's the part where it really starts to suck. And that's the part where you have to determine how bad do you want this thing? How much do you want to push yourself through some of that suckiness when on the other side is something really great, be it, financial freedom, independence from the 9 to 5, getting out from under a boss that you don't like, whatever it's going to be. But there's like some pressure and pain that comes with that. And this is where people just fall apart all the time because they get excited. They're okay. They're okay to deal with a little bit of pain at the onset. And then they get into the suck part and they can't dig deep enough to say, man, I've got to push through because on the end of this is the thing that I really want. And so I cannot stress enough how much, in this place, if you really do have your goals and your strategy and all of these things mapped out, you need to stick with it and say, yes, the suck is sucking. And it might suck for 6 months, a year, 3 years. It might be any of that, but it's well worth it in the end. Okay, example. And, I can only speak from my experience. Everybody's got their own. But I remember when I was first starting my own personal legal practice, and I was mostly doing it to help people. I thought it was like the right thing to do. I wanted to pay off my student loans, yada, yada. But as I started to see maybe there's something here, I didn't want that interfering with my day-to-day work life. And I was pretty committed to like not letting those things collide to the greatest extent that I possibly could. And so that meant when I got home at 6, and then I went to work out for a little bit, and then I got home and I took a shower and I fed the dogs. That meant starting at, 8, 8:30, 9 o'clock, I was now sitting down to start my second job, basically. And I can remember being so tired that I was leaned up against a dresser because I had this teeny tiny little apartment and my dogs. And I knew that if I sat in my bed and typed on my computer, my hand-me-down computer, to do some of this legal work, I knew I was going to fall asleep and I wasn't going to get it done. So I can remember leaning against this little dresser, and it was so uncomfortable, but it kept me awake so that I could sit there and I could write people's documents and I could do their stock grant agreements and their operating agreements and whatever. But I did that because I had to, because I knew I couldn't continue to grow the thing and deliver on what I had promised unless I had kind of dealt with some suck and some pain. And like, let me be clear, that went on for a period of like, 3 years, maybe. I mean, yes, did I graduate to a desk and I wasn't like sitting on the floor? Sure. But I was still doing it after hours. I was committed to, I had calculated to the hour how many hours I had to do a day of work throughout the course of the year, inclusive of backing out some couple days off, some maybe vacation, et cetera, et cetera. But I knew every day, 5 days a week, and sometime on the weekends, I had to do a minimum of 2.1 hours a week during the day after my full-time job. And then I had to do work on the weekends. And that, I promise you, really started to suck. Okay. And it was exhausting. I can remember, and I promise you, I can remember sitting at my computer at my desk, tears streaming down my face at 11 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock at night, writing people's documents because I had committed to it. I knew I had to do it to push my business forward and what I was trying to build, but I still accomplished it anyway. And not everybody is committed to that because they start to say, like, look, I'll promise you on the weekends, sometimes during the summer, it got real hard to, make that sacrifice and let the suck and push through that so that I could build something for my future, for my family and myself and those around me. But I still did it anyway. And I think a lot of people want to skip some of the suck. They want to go from, oh, I'm letting it hurt. I'll let it suck a little bit, but not too much. And then I'm going to just jump right into amazingness. But we can't get to the end point without taking the laps around the track and going through all of the things that we need to go through to build and develop our business, our skills, ourselves, learn what we need to learn, which sometimes maybe has to do with our business and sometimes maybe has to do with ourselves. But we have to dig in and let the suck. You can't skip past it. You can't fast forward through the hard work. You've just got to let the suck. Now, I say all of that, and you're probably like, Lindsay, you also preach wellness and all of these things. Was the way that I did it the right way? I don't know. Let's talk about it in 40 years. And if I'm still lucky enough to be on this earth and, I'm still healthy and okay, maybe it was the right way. But everybody's got to figure out the pathway that works for them, you know. But what I will tell you is if you slide into the pathway of, I'm going to do my full-time job and then I'm going to come home at night and then maybe I'll have a glass of wine or two. And then maybe if I'm still okay, I'm going to get into doing what I need to do. You can do that once in a while, everything in moderation, including moderation. But you can't do that all the time, because before you know it, you're not getting any work done. And I'm not sitting here telling you to like be in pain and have tears streaming down your face at your desk, but I am telling you there's going to be days where you have to make choices. You have to prioritize. Do I want this thing? And I have to deal with some shit and some pain to get it today. Or do I want to go have a short-term fun thing? And any of those answers is totally fine. But when you think about the compounding impact of a little bit of work, plus a little bit of work, plus a little bit of work, by the time you fast forward a couple of years, before you know it, you're going to look back. And if you're growing something, building something, developing something, you've now compounded efforts day over day because you've been hella consistent. It is sucky to be consistent all the time. It's exhausting. It's shitty. It's hard. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you, but it's worth it. If you want the life that you say you want, you've got to be willing to go through the hurt and the suck so that you can get to the place where you've let all that go and left it behind you and stepped into the life that you deserve. So that said, next week, we're going to learn about a little bit of a couple people who have been working on their own businesses. And I do say that because those businesses are not businesses that are venture businesses. They are your very typical small business. And that's the lifeblood of the American economy. And it's still a really valuable thing to listen to these individuals as they're going to talk to you about how they think about it, how they're moving their ball forward, the good parts, the bad parts, the scary parts, the messy parts, and everything in between. Forget, don't just be bold. Let it suck and be bolder.